Hello friends, I'm Tony, and with time I found something to be very true, and it is the fact that writing things down helps bring a lot of clarity to the mind. You can go from having a cloud of confusion in your head to then writing things down and turning all that confusion into something that you can understand. This is something that comes in very helpful when you're learning something new and are exercising the brain, because it will help you see things more clearly and it will help you understand and remember things better. This is why today we're going to talk about an app that not only changed the way that I write my thoughts down or write down the concepts that I'm learning, but it also changed the way that I organize my work. The app that I'm talking about is Notion. And we'll talk about the ways that I use it every single day, and also some of the many uses it has that you might find extremely handy as well. Because of how flexible the app is, you can use it for so many different things that even one time I heard this YouTuber call it their second brain. And being completely honest with you, putting it that way worried me a little bit. It made me think about the fact that somehow we're relying more and more on technology and that technology is somehow taking over. But the thing is that with time, I've realized that ever since the Sumerians started to use clay tablets to write, and that was more than 5,000 years ago. Then we eventually started using pen and paper, and now we're using computers and we're writing down in zeros and ones. We've been delegating work from our brains to technology for a very long time. In the end, recent technology is just more of the same, and we've relied on external tools long before the internet came along. I would even say that clay tablets and pen and paper, then our computers, the internet, and now maybe Notion, they are just more of the same tools, just that in a different form. My thought process is that we always have the power to choose which tools we want to use and which ones we don't. And learning a new tool for writing is simply an additional option. So it's a new option that we have that we didn't have before. You can always go back to pen and paper if you choose to. And in fact, even though I use Notion every single day, I also use pen and paper every single day. The same way that a car is an excellent way of transportation, we can always go back to walking. And it turns out that we often do. But the car is simply a new choice we have, a new option we have. That's why I see technology as an option and as a choice that you choose, but that it will never become you. Our essence has always been and will always remain intact. But without getting any more philosophical, I'm going to close the idea by saying that I was really skeptical in the beginning when I heard someone call Notion their second brain, and that adding one more way of writing things down would just complicate things even further. But then I started to use the app and it amazed me. It actually blew my mind with how useful it is and how powerful it is. So without further ado, let's hop into Notion and see all the things we can do in it, because these can go all the way from taking notes, to tracking projects, to schoolwork, to collaborating with teams, also to manage workflows and so many other things. So let's start by the most basic thing that Notion has.
Okay, so the first thing to know about Notion is that you organize your information in pages. So this would be a blank page, let's say my new page. And then you press enter and then you can put text on that page, right? You can also add an icon. Let's add the mountain icon, and then you can also add a cover. Let's see. It gives you default options, so let's just choose this one. Okay, so now we have a blank page. So as I said, you can write plain text. So it would be text. You can write bullet points, bullet lists, and then you can have maybe numbered lists, right? And also checklists. So then you have like to-do lists. So then you have these different types of information, and they call these elements. So you can see that these would be 4 separate elements, and you can move them around fairly intuitively as well. So you can move this around to the right, and now you can see that the structure changes a bit. But then this would be different ways of organizing your text, right? So this would be plain text and lists. And of course, you can do some other things like including images as well. So let's say that I copied an image from somewhere else and I'm embedding this image here. So you can have images in your page as well. You can also add links. For example, if I copied the link of Google, I can add it as an embedded, and then that would be added this way. So then you can see of different ways that you can start formatting and creating your pages. Another cool thing is that you can nest pages indefinitely, right? So, well, Notion also has keyboard shortcuts. So for example, if you do a slash, it opens up this window with all the options that you have. And one of these options is to create a new page, right? So if I type down page, enter, and that would take me to a brand new page. brand new page, right? And this would be a new page within the other one that I did before. So if I click on heading backwards, it's like a tree structure, right? So I have this page, and within this one, I have this brand new page. And if I wanted to, I could add a new page in here as well. So I have an untitled page. And if I go up again, I have this original page. And this already gives you a lot of flexibility because you can start to think about the different ways that you can structure the things that you want to write down. Whenever I'm taking notes on a new concept or a new topic that I'm learning and I'm using Notion, I'll show you an example of a page. You can do Command P to look for different pages in your Notion. And then I'm gonna do regression for regression analysis and hit enter, and that will take me to that page that I have on regression analysis. And this is something that I was learning, and I embedded some links. For example, I have some bullet points, some different links to take me to some resources. Then I have these. This is an H1 title. So if you're writing down and you press 1, this brings you a title. So that's what this is. Another embedded. This would be an H2 title, so a smaller title. Then text, numbered lists, H1 again. You can also add code snippets. So you have a lot of options to add your text, and this is what a page would end up looking like, and this would be mostly plain text. This is an example of a call out. So it's a way of calling out information, and you can add emojis to depending on what you're calling out. But there you have another example of a page. So if I'm going back to the original page, you can see in here that there's another option. If you use this character and then space, you can create a toggle, right? So now in here, so if you have like the main name of the toggle, and then you can add information inside. And now you have this element, which is a toggle, and you can simply open it and close it to display or to hide the information. And that becomes really handy as well. Because check out this other page I have on my Python course that I created. So this one. So this is the course that I have on Skillshare to learn Python in 30 days. And you can see pretty much this is the entire curriculum in a single toggle. And then I have every single section of the course, right? So if I were to go into, let's say, functions, then I could have, okay, this is day 11, and then you have the objectives for the day, the learning for that day, recap, and then understanding. So if I went into learning, I could see all the content that I taught that day. And then I have the understand section with the exercises for that day. But in the end, it's really simple to look at the structure of the course and the outline of the course, and then go through it while I was developing it, and also when I was recording it. So toggles are super useful as well. And toggles are extremely useful, and I would say even more useful when you're trying to learn something new and to remember something new through active recall. And active recall is something that we covered on a previous video. I'll try to put the link in the description or up there. But you can see in here, let's look for the page called Data Analytics Concepts. Yeah, this one. Data Analytics Concepts, right? So I'm learning about data analytics. I'm taking a course, and you can see the structure of where I'm learning, right? I also have it on toggles like this. And then I have the topics and everything. The important thing to note here is that aside from being toggles, everything is written down as a question, right? So whenever I want to understand, let's say the first question, what is data literacy? So I would say that data literacy is pretty much knowing how to collect information, collect data, how to manage data, how to transform data, and how to communicate the findings of that data. So yeah, the ability to really transform, manipulate data, and communicate findings. So that is what data literacy is. And that's how I would go about studying that topic that I'm learning. And this is all yellow because I have already studied it once. And for example, if I knew this question, if I were to study it again today, and I would find that question that I'm comfortable with the answer and that I know that I remember it, I would turn that into default. So I would turn it into white. Before I studied anything in here, everything was red. So ideally, like the first time I write everything, I would find it like this. It would be red, and it would tell me, okay, it needs recall. And then when I study it and I say, what does data mean in data science? And I open up this question and I know the answer, then I would say, okay, this would go to yellow. And now I go about it this way, and I know what I need to study, what I have already covered and I feel comfortable with, and what I need to pay more attention to. Eventually, I want to turn everything in here. I want to remove the color out of this. I want to turn everything white, pretty much. But there you have another example of why toggles are so useful, because you can use them for active recall and for studying and for structuring your concepts and the things that you're writing down. So aside from, okay, you have a plain text, you have toggles, you have nested pages and everything. I'm gonna clear this to get more space up here. Let's say that you can go about things a bit differently, right? So you have plain text and then you have something else that's called a database. So yeah, let's call it a database or a table. So if I were to do inline table, I think it is, database, okay, inline. So there you have, it would create a new table, right? So this would be my new table. And now I can see that I have 3 entries in here. So that's the default, it creates a new table, it has 3 different entries. And you can think of these entries as simply a new page. So new entry, which is pretty much a page, right? The same thing that we saw before. You can add text, you can embed different pages inside. So you have your text, your new page, and then you have that new entry. And then you can go back to that table, the one that you had on my original page. So then I have, let's say, another entry, and then the 3rd entry, right? So now I have a database, or you would call it a table, with 3 different pages. And the good thing about this is that you can add what are called properties. And this is the powerful thing about this, right? So you can add different, for example, this one has already a default property, which is tags. So you can say, I don't know, if you're managing a workflow, you can say something like in progress, right? And you can change the color for this to be, let's do yellow. And then you can add another one to say done. And let's do this one with green. And then you can have another one saying backlog. And this one on gray, right? So you would go from backlog to in progress to done. So a pretty simple workflow. And now you could go to your table and you can select different tags for your different entries on the table. And this could get a lot more complex than this, and a lot more useful and a lot more powerful than this. And let's actually look at an example of something that I have right now, like a table that I use right now. So the one that I have is called read to lead, this one. Okay, so this is pretty much like a reading list that I have, right? So then I have the different attributes would be this drop down, which would be what type of content it is. It can be an article, it can be a video or a book. Then the name of that book, it's pretty much mostly books in this example. And then the status, is it ready to read? Am I reading it? Or do I want to reread it? Or is it finished? And then the intent that I have, do I want to read it a lot or not as much as other books, so I can have contrast on the ones that I want to read first. Then I have the author and the category as well. But then this would be an example, right? And then within this, I would have the page of this book, which is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And then I add an image from Google, so I can have the cover of that book. And then I have some notes that I'm taking while I'm reading the book. I just started reading this book, so this is pretty much not that thorough yet. And I don't know how much thorough I'm gonna get with that. But when you see, for example, let's look at other Limitless, for example. This is a book that I really did, like I sat down and I read the table of contents and toggles. And then I pretty much wrote notes on the entire book as I was reading it, simply because I enjoyed the way of reading it that way, and it took a lot of time to read, but I enjoyed it because I was remembering things better and I was internalizing things better. So if I go down to, you can see all the chapters and energy, and then 10 recommendations for generating limitless energy. This is a book by Jim Quick. So you have a good brain diet, brain nutrients, exercise, killing automatic negative thoughts, clean environment, positive peer group. So you have like different ways of structuring what you're learning, and then you have everything at your fingertips in terms of I can access this from my phone, and it's a thought. The idea of me simply pulling out this summary and then answering the questions if I want to remember something about this book. Of course, I haven't done this thoroughly with pretty much any book like this. I think the one I've gone more in depth. But there's always the option, right? Because it does take a lot of time, but if you decide to take the time to it, you have the option and you can do it that way. Also with the images that I added on those pages, I can go into this. You can have different views for the table. So now I have, this is literally the same table and the same database, but it's viewed differently, right? So what it does is that it does different squares for each page, and then it adds the image to show it as the gallery, right? So I have the books in here, a more visual way of seeing my reading list. And then there's also this way of looking at things as in a timeline. And remember that everything, it comes out of a table, right? It's all the table, and then based on the attributes that it has, and then it pulls different ways of seeing things, but it's all coming from the same source of data. So then, as you can see in each page, there's a property that I created that it is a date range, right? So I called it reading, and it's meant to represent the day that I started reading that book and the day that I finished. I haven't finished this one yet, so the end date would be continuously improving until I finish that date. But when you look at it in a timeline, you could see, okay, Thinking Fast and Slow, you started in June 2022. And when I go back to the books that I was reading, so this is a reading list that I had a while ago, so in 2020, that I haven't been updating necessarily recently, but when I was reading often and I was updating this database often, I had the list of books, right? So you can see that I read Sapiens, then 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and these books, and I can see them in a range of dates, right? And I can see them through time, which can be also helpful as well. And you can use this for use this Gantt view, timeline view, for many other things as well. But then finally, I think the page that I use the most, so if I go down to the left, you can have your main structure. This is like here you can see this is the page that we created, where here you have all your pages and however way you want to structure them. But the page that I use every single day is this one. So this would be my execute page, and here is where I highlight the things that I need to do for work and the things that I need to do for my projects, right? So in here I would set my goals for the next 3 months. This is May, June, and July. And I know this is Spanish, but I'll highlight the things that might be useful for you. But it's pretty much like a basic to-do list, right? So then I have, empowering questions, which is the questions that I want to be focusing on in that moment. Then I have Apunta, which is pretty much the project that I'm working on right now, which is a YouTube. It includes the YouTube channel and the online courses. And these are the things that I try to do every day. So exercising, cold shower. This is my work. So going to the office and the things that I do there, this would link me to my to-do list of the office. Then I try to read every day. So this would be Thinking Fast and Slow, the things that I'm writing down about that book, which takes me to that page we saw earlier. And then again, I try to play guitar, or the things that I try to do on that day, basically. And then the other important thing about this execute page is the one I have for the project, right? For YouTube and for Skillshare. And this is what some people call a Kanban board. So it's pretty much a way to structure your tasks. And here I have it structured in a way that there's a column for my backlog, column for the ones that I haven't started, a column for the things that I have in progress, for the ones that are blocked, and the ones that are done. So you can see that right now I'm working on recording this Notion video. I already finished the script for Notion, and this is all managed by different properties, by the way. So I finished the script that I have it in here. Now I'm recording it, then I'm posting, recording my follow-up videos and some other things. This would be some of the learning that I'm doing with data analysis and data analytics and full stack engineering, but pretty much it structures your day and your week, or however you want to structure it, in a way that you can move things around, right? From one column to the next one, so you know what you're working on, know what is blocked, and know what is not. And again, this all comes from a database structure. So if I looked at this in a table, it would be the same thing. So I would have my different pages for the different videos I'm working on, or whatever they are. Then it would have a column with the tags, a priority. Pumps would be Pomodoros and how many Pomodoros I want to spend on that. But then I just simply added a new view that is a board view, and it all comes from the table. And that is what structures it this way. And that becomes really powerful when you're managing your workflows like this. So we can go back then to our initial page. But if you haven't tried Notion, I would recommend simply starting off with downloading the app and start off with a blank page and just do plain text and some bullets. And you can do the / and see all the options that you have, but you can start learning with time, and you'll start getting used to the features that it has with time, and you can eventually even start writing things and using those databases and those tables and those boards to use it in different ways, in different timelines, and however you find that useful. And as the last thing, you can also check out some of the templates that Notion has. When you have a blank page, you have this option of templates, and they give you hundreds, if not even thousands, of different ways that you can use Notion for. And again, it's really robust in the sense that everything is an element and everything is either a page or a database. But in the end, you can structure all of that in so many different ways that it becomes really flexible. And again, you can pretty much see your thoughts and your mind reflected on your computer. And I guess that's why that other YouTuber called it his second brain. And yeah, it's simply a tool, but I think it's super useful.
So that was our tour of Notion for today. I hope if you decide to give the app a shot, it also has a positive impact in your life, the same way that it did on mine. Keep in mind that your Notion will most likely look completely different to mine because of how flexible the app is, and that is why the app is so powerful. You can adapt it to whatever you want, and it can even end up being a reflection of your thoughts, and that's where it brings more clarity, and that will evolve over time. Hopefully you'll find that it's crazy useful when it comes down to organizing your thoughts, also organizing your work, and then it helps you exercise your brain, and it helps you bring clarity as well. And in the topic of exercising your brain, I'm gonna take a second to remind you that a way of exercising your brain, of training your brain and finding new neural pathways, is to learn a brand new skill. One skill that is extremely useful and extremely valuable nowadays is learning how to code. And I have a course on Skillshare where you can do just that and learn Python in 30 days by spending 15 minutes each day. Also go through daily exercises so you get immersed on what you're learning. Have rest days every 4 sessions, and even finish off with a final project in which you'll build your own Python application. Again, it's only bite-sized lessons of 15 minutes each day, and the course is meant for anyone who doesn't even have a clue about what programming even is, or for anyone who has learned to code in the past and is simply looking for a structured refresher. You can go to the link in the description to check that out, and you will also get a 1-month free trial on Skillshare where you can find many other interesting courses. But that was it for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching and for staying with me this far. If you like this video, feel free to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel as well. Click that bell button so you get notified whenever I post my next video, now that I'm posting weekly. Also, feel free to comment down below with your thoughts and questions, and I'll make sure to be around. But until then, I hope you stay curious, and I'll see you next time.